Welcome to Getting Ghosted. This is an Intuitive Soul Collective podcast, and I'm your host, Allie Horner. Welcome, everyone. I am so excited to come back to the podcast and be back maybe a little bit more often here. I'm still trying to create some balance, and as a Libra, when things are out of balance for me, it literally eats away at my soul. So I'm always seeking and finding that balance, which as a manifesting generator can be difficult at times, but it also is something I've been refining and focusing on over the years. So I'm happy that you guys are back. I know that there has been a lot of emphasis lately on things that are going on in the world and all the things going on in politics, and there's been a lot. And so I wanted to channel my guides a little bit. I'm going to have Eric come on through. He's been hanging out a lot today, keeping me company. And if you guys are in Patreon, you know he's been doing some little Q&As. And so he wanted to come in, and I'm happy to have him here because he is wanting to talk about a little bit more of mediumship and how the other side wants to connect with us and why they want to connect with us so badly right now. So Eric, go ahead and take it away. He's saying, so there is a spiritual connection that needs to be made. And he said, for a lot of people, they're really struggling with the concept of death. The concept of death and dying, that life ends when the physical body ends, when the physical form ends. And he said, really nothing could be further from the truth. But he said, I understand that a lot of people really struggle with this concept. And he said, we're not here to push anyone or convert them to our way of thinking or convince them. And he said, but there is a lot of spiritual support that you can get by aligning with your higher senses, which connecting to spirit will help you do that. And he said, a lot of people often kind of fall into fear frequency. He's showing me how a lot of people, they connect and kind of fall into fear frequency. And he said, you have to remember that there are a lot of people out there who make money off of you being in fear. This is the way that they keep their own livelihoods going, is they want other people to be in fear. And he said, I know it kind of sucks, but it is kind of true. And he said, those people will have their karma, trust me. But he keeps showing me, he's it's kind of he's playing the song, The Circle of Life. And he is saying, it's not up to them whether or not you sit in fear. You can always choose to find love. And he said, that is what the human consciousness is really doing right now. That's what the collective is doing, is it's trying to move toward love over fear. And he said, this is a really important thing that we want you to understand, because this is what connecting with love, on the love that exists on the other side of the veil, can do to you. Because love in and of itself is more of a universal energy, a universal experience. It's really not about, he keeps saying fear separates, love unites. And he said, it's really a very different energetic texture too. And he said, if you want more flow, if you want more clarity, you have to shift your thoughts more and more toward love. And he said, so think about what love is. When someone is being loving, how do they look? Curious, open, interested. People love being interested, exploring, being curious about things. And he said that's how children truly are at their core, until the world teaches them to be afraid. And he keeps saying, it's not that there's nothing to be afraid of in the world, but a lot of people instill a lot more fear at young ages through intimidation, dramatizing things. He's showing people fear mongering when it's hey, it's okay for this kid to explore and learn and stuff like that. He said a lot of people, they kind of close off these young minds very young. And he said it's important to keep your mind open. So if you want to have the future you want to have, that curiosity and exploration is really essential. And so what he's showing me is how when we connect with spirit, our energy lifts and widens and brightens. And he said, and you guys get clearer intuitively, literally just by attempting to connect to the other side. He's because the other side works through your intuitions. And he's showing a hand fitting in a glove. And he said, it's when you're walking around and you're I just feel like my clothes don't fit. I feel weird in my body. Nothing feels like it's fitting right. And he shows that when someone is starting to elevate their energy the way we do when we are channeling or connecting to the other side with love and truth, he's saying it suddenly is you feel at ease. Everything feels like it fits right mentally, emotionally, spiritually. He goes, you feel like you're in the right place at the right time because you are. You find this flow, you find this ease, you find this grace within you. And he said, I know the word grace is kind of loaded because it tends to be co-opted by certain religions or kind of used by certain religions. And he said, but really, it's not grace as in like, forgive them everything and don't care who did what to you and blah, blah, blah. He said, it's not that. He said, when I talk about grace, I'm talking about allowing yourself to move forward with ease instead of having to justify it, allowing yourself to explore and to try new things without having to say, here's what I have to do, or like, I have to prove this, or I have to explain myself. He said, no, you don't got to explain. He's like, you don't got to explain shit. And so he's showing me, he said, mediumship also can help you with moving forward in life and thriving. He said, really, some people their fear mind is so strong that they subconsciously push away mediumship or connecting to their loved ones on the other side, which is really just pure love and creativity and truth. He's saying, but really they do that because unconsciously they don't think that they're worthy of it, or they're afraid that any change they make will make them lose things that are going on. Like they'll have to change their current life. And he said, and for some people, they would rather choose an uncomfortable or a really bad present than choose an unknown but potentially far better future. And he said, this is kind of like the human conundrum he said, this is why people want predictions so much. They want a guarantee. And he said, there is no guarantee, but when people start to connect to the other side, things do get brighter and lighter and easier for them. He said, the other piece is a lot of people on earth want to confine themselves through labels and definitions a lot. And he said, we're not saying that some labels and definitions are bad or good or right or wrong, but sometimes what happens is we get lost in them and what we think those things have to mean about us. And we don't realize that we can be so many different things at the same time. And he said, one of the most beautiful times in a person's life is when they haven't figured out who they are yet. And they're just exploring and creating because they're not in me. They are just in this flow and this energy of delighting in looking at the world around with them and going, what's that? What's that? And he's showing a little kid going, ooh. And like, they're getting down, like laying in the grass and looking at the grass really up close, like, whoa. And he said, think about it. Like adults never do stuff like that, but kids do it all the time. And he said, that is when these kids have like, their sense of self completely melts away. They're totally entrenched and engrossed in what they're observing or looking at and learning and wondering about. And he said, a lot of adults on earth could use a little bit more of that. They could use a little bit more presence with that curiosity and ease and wonder. He said, connecting to spirit helps you do that because what happens when you channel is your conscious mind, basically your sense of self, your me, goes offline. And he said, you can actually look up studies on this. And I was like, I remember this. And so he said, so one of the best things you can do is we don't want to completely lose our sense of self on earth. That's not the goal. But he keeps saying a lot of what starts to happen is you begin to bridge the gap between fear and love, because when we're in fear mode, we're more in me and mine, like self-protective defensiveness, us versus them mentality. And he said, the world does not need that. He's like, there's already enough of that, but he keeps showing the tipping point and how more and more people are going to understand and recognize we are not actually separate from each other. We are deeply intrinsically connected. He goes, now what happens naturally is the more that you work with your connection to the other side, even if it at first is just through little signs, meditations, where you're like, I don't know if I'm getting anything from them. And like, you might have split second visions or think you hear them for a split second or get a feeling of their presence one day, but nothing for weeks. He said, even that is better than nothing because it opens the door to a higher consciousness way of living and being. And he said, I don't mean that as in like, ooh, consciousness. Like he said, I mean it more so as like, no, like literally your brain begins to work differently. You start to open up to the possibility that love is real, that truth exists, and that you're able to tap into something higher and better, and therefore shift and change your life beyond what you thought you were capable of before. He said, because the identity you had that kept you small and scared begins to wash away and you begin to shift and change and begin to know what you're capable of. So even though you may still have certain identities or certain labels that you carry, you don't like, he's showing like someone like not being confined, carrying them with themselves, but as a lightness. There's an airiness and a lightness to them, a pride. And he said, the danger too of having too many labels is if that label goes away. So let's say like you're like, oh, I'm an athlete, I'm a football player, but then you get a TBI, suddenly you're not a football player and you're nothing else anymore. You're kind of just there. Like you have issues with like your brain, your cognitive ability drops, your moods are insane, like and intense. You struggle to stay present, like, you know what I mean? Think clearly, everything, like your memory goes. He said, and so that person completely has a full, like, meltdown. And because it's not only does this injury happen that impacts their brain or whatever, or maybe they get a leg injury and it's like, now they're not a football player anymore. Right. He said, and all of a sudden, like their sense of self, like they're like, I don't know who I am. And he said, it can be a really devastating time, but it also can be a really good time because, hey, we were hanging on to that too tight. Right. And he said, a lot of you guys hang on to your identity as though it's a material possession, but your identities shift and change all the time. And he said there's so many different ways to think about things, but as you guys grow and expand and as you guys connect to the other side, one of the things that will happen is your sense of this is me and this is all I can be and all I am and this is all we are as humans begins to really change, because when you work with the other side, not only does the energy that you're a part of shift and change, your brain changes and you hear different bits of wisdom and truth from the other side. The other side will fill you in on the real deal of humanity, but it's very difficult for other people to tell it to you. You have to be willing to listen to it and have those downloads from the other side yourself. And he said a lot of people have epiphany and insights and they think it's just them, but it's actually a spiritual guide, a voice from the beyond. He's like the beyond. It's a voice from the beyond telling them or giving them that download because it's time for them to have it, or they're receptive in that moment so they can receive it. He said, now what they do with it, up to them. That's the human consciousness for you. Like he's like, we can give the download. We can't tell you what to do with it. We can't make you do it. Like he's like, if you accept our guidance, we can try to guide, but we can't make you do anything. Or, he's like, we can't like do that, but he just keeps saying, there has to be some choice there. He's also showing a lot of people having a lot more choice than they realize. And so he said, but with mediumship, we love to come in and show you that we're present, especially in times where you need encouragement or when you're making a big decision, or something that feels like a big decision, but really will only be a little thing. He also is showing me that he's like, we try to illuminate things and get people's attention on certain things. So like certain books they need to read, certain people they need to talk to, like they'll just be drawn to someone or something. And he said, this is one of the most often like overlooked signs that you have a loved one that is trying to nudge you forward. And he goes, and your loved ones don't have a personal agenda. We see what your soul wanted to experience and accomplish here on a soul level and also on a larger collective consciousness soul level. And he said, so we understand it all. And we are trying to always like help you guys get to the right place at the right time. So, he keeps saying one of the best things you can do is actually enhance your own connection to the other side. He goes, you don't have to go about it all like willy-nilly and stay connected all day. He said, but gently noticing when you have someone spiritually trying to guide you, support you, give you an alternative perspective or another way to think about things, giving you ideas and downloads and insights into things. He was like, we're really, really good at helping people if they'll listen. And he goes, but you have to have moments where you're perceptive and aware, when you're open-minded enough to receive that. He said most people don't stay open and receptive in their day-to-day. Their minds are too busy. And so what happens is they'll get more in their dreams, or they'll wake up and have like, he said almost like, he goes like you did this morning. And I was like, yeah, I woke up really early because the wind was blowing really hard and I had my windows cracked open. And so my blinds were banging against the window. And it woke me up at like 4:15 in the morning or something. But what the blessing in that is that I was very tuned in because it was like that really quiet time in the morning and I was kind of coming in and out of sleep. That's when I tend to get a lot of my like really crystal clear messages and downloads and intuitions. And he said, yeah, and a lot of people are the same way. And he goes, I know a lot of people like hate waking up at that time, but actually that is kind of like one of the best times to actually hear your loved ones or hear spiritual guidance or download intuitions, visions, images, get downloads about things that are going to happen and even how to shift, potentially shift outcomes and stuff like that. He said, but a lot of people just don't recognize it. So he keeps saying there's so many great things about mediumship, and some of it's connecting with loved ones and remembering that relationship is still very real and that death is not the end. So there's nothing to be afraid of about living life. Like if death is not the end, he said, most people live life more fully. It's not like they're going to go do something reckless, like right away and just like go skydiving right away or something like that. He said most people aren't wired like that. So he said most of you could use with a little more living and a little bit more risk. He showed me how people in America are very risk averse. And he said, so what you guys think of risk is actually like not actually risky. And then the other piece he's showing me is, he said on Earth as well, when you begin to practice mediumship, your life can shift into an alignment that you never thought possible. And he said, now it's not because spirits always work in magic and stuff. He goes, but there's something that happens where it opens up a new portal or a flow of energy into, he said, that shift in consciousness allows you to allow more prosperity, light, life, creativity, and different decision making to come in. He said you might start to meet new people, find new places, suddenly feel inspired to do things that you never would have done before. And he said it totally changes the trajectory that your life can go on. And he goes, if you are feeling called to mediumship, it's usually because you're meant to. Like people, like everyone has the ability to connect to the other side. But it's really all about what's your unique way. He keeps showing certain people, like looking at others and being like, how come she can hear Eric talking? How come she can see him? How come she can do it like that? I guess I can't connect to the other side because I can't see or hear them. And he said, no way, man. Like he said, we give you nudges, we give you pulls, we give you sensations and feelings. We show signs of presence. We give you chills down one arm. Your loved ones give you kisses on the cheek or try to give you a hug and a feeling of warmth and lightness. He's like, we leave little signs or trinkets for you if we can do that. He's like, we love to sit and chit chat with you. And sometimes you get a telepathic connection, but you just don't hear it. And he said it's because it doesn't have sound. And he said, so you guys don't always recognize it, but it's us talking. You're not imagining it if you think it's us. Like he said, usually with telepathy, you'll get this like almost like something that pops into your head with no sound, almost as if an answer to a question, and your loved one or someone on the other side will pop into your head out of nowhere. He said, that's us. He said, most of you guys question it and you're like, I don't know what that was. I don't know why my grandpa's in my head today or why Eric's in my head today. Like he's like, if we pop in your head, it's because we're around. So he said, most people don't realize that they'll suddenly be thinking about us, or we'll be popping in their heads and memories will be popping up, or they'll swear they see us sitting in our favorite chair for a split second or sitting in the passenger seat of the car. And he goes, that's us. We're really there. And so he said, those are some of the ways that we really connect with people. And he's showing also through art and creativity and writing. He said, we have a really easy time connecting to people when they're writing, when they're painting, something where they kind of just let their mind go. And he's showing auto writing, which I love to do. But there's also doodling and coloring books and painting and dancing and walking. He said, all these things get those juices flowing and get your mind to kind of like ease up where your thoughts sort of like stop looping so much. And then all of a sudden you're able to connect with that loved one a little bit better through what you're doing. And so he keeps saying there's so many different ways we connect and so many perks to connecting. He's like, but you got to come and like, you got to like start to do it yourself, because you may have completely different benefits or really cool things that happen that we haven't mentioned. You may have ways of connecting, maybe you're more of a smeller, like you smell certain people. But like we haven't mentioned that as much today, or, maybe you have a very unique way of doing things and connecting with the other side, but it's not something I would have mentioned here. So he keeps saying, yeah, you kind of just got to experiment for yourself. I hope you guys liked today's episode. I know that this is like a fun little bonus episode, but Eric was like, yeah, let's talk about mediumship. Let's talk about kind of what's going on here and some of the benefits of this. And we will have our mediumship mentorship open. It's a little 6-week course to help you learn at a very beginner level of how to connect with the other side. You'll learn how to connect with loved ones and spirit guides, the ins and outs of it, easy everyday practices to do it. This is not going to be a super complicated, like over the top rituals, sacrifice your firstborn type of course. Like I am very into very practical mediumship and teaching and techniques. I will call in my guides here and there. I don't know if Eric will be there or if my other guides will be there or if they'll come in as a group. We'll have to see. But I will be teaching you guys grounding, boundaries, how to create your own connection, how the other side communicates and how they don't. What's a spirit message and like what's your imagination or anxiety or things like that. What to do when you receive spirit messages, all of that fun stuff. So you will get to like learn how to create your own practices and connection that you'll be able to take and, use way after the course is over. Classes are Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Keep in mind, we will have a time change coming. So just wanted to mention that pretty soon here. And in addition to that, there will be replays and all of the classes will be recorded. So every time I teach, there's people who are like, oh, I can't make the live classes at all because of work or I have kids or whatever. Is that okay? And I'm like, absolutely. Yeah. Feel free to come and join us, in the chat group in between the classes and, hang out in there, ask questions, practice with people, share your experiences, connecting with the other side, cool woo-woo things that are going on. I will be chiming in there. Other people will be in there to support you and cheer you on. So but you're welcome to watch the replays as well. Alrighty, I will have the links to that in the show notes. And if you guys would like to, please come and join us. Again, we start Tuesday the 7th, but you're welcome to join in the week or so afterward as well. And then just catch up on the call that you missed. You won't have missed too much. It's mostly like beginner housekeeping stuff and some really beginner notes on mediumship, like really easy to watch and catch up on. So I hope that you guys will come. It'll be linked up in the show notes. And yeah, anything else, Eric? He said toodaloo. Okay. Thank you guys.